Alright, so welcome back again. My name is Jesse, and in this wonderful and exciting tutorial, I'll be trying to see how to build a very simple app in Streamlit called Maps app, in which we will see how to use maps in Streamlit, right? So let's see how to work with it. So this is a very simple app in which you are plotting the different countries as well as their population. So if I come back to the app, I can expand it, and this is a new feature from Streamlit, which is very cool. You can download any data frame that you have. Perfect. And you can see the plot here, which is being plotted with Plotly, right? So if I expand it, you can see the countries of the world and then their population. So I can zoom in wherever I am to a country there, and then you can see the population of the country together with the latitude, longitude, and then the country, right? Very, very cool. So let's see how to build this app in Streamlit from scratch. And if I come back to the other side of the application, to the advanced, you can select the country like Ghana, and then you can also see the population as well as the cities within Ghana, right? And then their population. So something like Ejura, like Kumasi, like Accra. Very cool. And I can also move on from here to the attendees in case you have if you want to plot, maybe you're having a conference or something and you want to plot the attendees together. How would you do that? So let's say we have a conference, and then we are trying to plot where everybody's coming from. So somebody's coming from Accra, somebody's coming from Delhi, someone is coming from, let's say, Berlin, someone is coming, yeah, I can't spell Berlin, right? Maybe someone is also coming from a different country, maybe in Tokyo or something, or yeah, something different, or Lagos or something. How do you plot it? So if I will just select all the coordinates, and I'm going to get all the coordinates here, and then I can see the plot, right? You can see that the plot is here. So these are all the people here. We can also do some more complicated aspects, like maybe trying to do maybe a flight plan of where everyone is going, which is quite simple to do, which maybe another time we're going to do. So you can see that now we see all the coordinates. So if I click on here, you can see the coordinates in the country. The one from Lagos, I'm surprised there is a Lagos in Portugal. And there is also Accra in Lagos, and there is Delhi, and there is also Berlin in US, which I had no idea about. Very interesting. So that is a simple app we were trying to build from scratch. So let's see how to build this app from scratch. So I'll go back again to our workspace, which is here. And then we will start writing some code. So this is the name of the app. So I'm going to stop the old one, and then we will create a new directory, right? This is where it is. I'm going to create a new directory and call it as my maps. So you can call it as st map app, right? Streamlit map app. I'm moving to st map app, and then I need to also get out of here and then copy my dataset into my st map app. Perfect. So let's check it out, and then I'll move into st. I'll create a file called app.py, and I'll open my directory with VS Code. So you can use any text editor, but nowadays everybody uses VS Code, which is quite interesting. Long ago there was Sublime Text, but now everybody's moving to VS Code. Okay, so let's start building some code. So the first thing is I'm going to import my Streamlit. So in case you don't have Streamlit on your app, the packages you'll be using is, we will need to install Streamlit. We also need to install Pandas, and then Plotly Express. These are the three main packages that you're using, right? So I'm going to import Streamlit as st, right? And then we also need to import Pandas as pd. Then we will create a function called load data function, which will pick in the data, and then we will read that data. So return pd.read_csv, right? Now passing the data, csv data, right? So these are the two main steps that we have now to load the data, and then perfect. So I wanted to go to Control P. Perfect. So let's build our main app as we always do. So it's going to be called my main, and then we always do the same thing. You can omit this one, but let's do it as is our tradition. Now I'll call it as my maps app, right? And this one will take a menu, and the menu is going to have 3 options. We have the home, and then we have the about, as we saw, or yeah, we have the advanced. We call that advanced, and then we also call attendees. And the final one is going to be the about, right? So that the user can select it. Perfect. Then I'll just create my choices as I always do, and this is going to be st.sidebar.select box. Then I'll pass in my data. So let's pass in the menu, and then I'll pass in my menu. Perfect. That is all. So let's close our app. So if underscore name is equal to underscore main, so I can run it as a script. So we're going to run our function called main. Perfect. So let's create it. So if the choice is, you can also use the pages, but I prefer this approach because it's a simple app. Home, do something, so pass, else if choice is equal to, let's say, advanced, I want you to pass, and then we'll do the rest, right? So just repeat this for the remaining. So for advanced, for attendees, and then the last one will be just about. So else st.title, or we can call it sub header about. Okay, that is something very simple we have done, which we could have simplified it. Now let's start with our main app. So I will stop the old one, which we have already stopped, and then this is where we are. I'm going to run to Streamlit, run app.py. So if everything works, it's supposed to open. This was the old one, right? So I'll close this one, and then you'll keep the new one beside it. Okay, so that is it, right? That's the basic stuff. Now we need to load the data set, and then we will just show it. So let's first of all load our data. So we will call it as, I give it a particular name. So I'll call it as my, let's say, world, because that's the name of the data set. Then I'll pass in my load data function, which takes in my data set. So world, the name of our data set, as we saw here, is called world cities. So world cities.csv. I'll save it, and then we can now show it, right? So with st.expander, I want to say data view, and then from here I'll just go straight away with whatever I want to do. st.data frame. You can also use data editor, which is a very cool feature. Then I'll pass in my world. So if I save it, and I'll always rerun. If I come back here, we have our data view, and then our data is there. And out of the nice thing of Streamlit, you already have the option to download the data right here. You can also search, which is very cool, right? Very, very nice. That's a new feature in the new versions of Streamlit. Okay, perfect. Now we are done with this. So let's plot our data. So how do we plot them up? So we use Plotly to help us with that. So I'll go back and now import Plotly. We are using Plotly Express because Plotly.express, because that is cool as PS, and then we will now read it, right? So to plot in Plotly, all you need is, let's create our figure, and the figure is going to take my Plotly.scatter. We have scatter map plus, so there is scatter. You can see there's scatter geo, there's scatter matrix, there's scatter polar, but what you need is map box. And this time, sometimes if you are using some data from somewhere, you need a token, but because we are using our own data, we are not using any token. It takes the data frame, as you can see, and then the size, the hover data, and the rest, right? So these other parameters. So I'll copy them from the old one just to save us time, which is this one, right? So it takes the data and then these ones. I'll copy them and let's close this to save us time, which is this. So what it takes is the data that you want to plot, data frame, and then inside our data we should have a latitude column, and my own is called lat, and a longitude column, which is the long here. And you also want to specify what the hover name is, which is the city column, and then we also want to specify the hover data, what we want to show. So we also had country, admin, and there was also population and capital, so you also want to show them, right? So that is what you specify here. Then the color is, you can just give it any color. So let's give it a simple color here of, let's say, blue, or we can call it as magenta, right? And then that is all. So that is how to do the plot. Then from there, after plot, and you just come down here, and then we just use Streamlit to plot it, right? So to plot it with Streamlit, you just go with my first, you have to specify that we want to update layout with OpenStreetMap, which is my map box style, which in our case the map box style is Open Street Map. Perfect. And let's plot it. So st.plotly chat would come from Streamlit, and I'll pass in my figure. So if I save it now, if everything works out, you can see that we have our plot here, which is quite cool, right? Perfect. And you can see by default we have our zoom. If I expand it, the zoom is the default zoom. If I put it at 1 by default, it will come out. If I open it, it automatically comes out in this format, everything, right? I can also reduce it to, let's say, 4, and then you can see the difference, right? It does zoom out to 4. So I prefer to keep it at either 1 or 2, so that I see the whole world at the time, right? If I put it at 1, then I see the entire world, which is very cool. And once I hover over it, you can see all of them. So that is how to plot with Plotly in Streamlit, right? Very, very simple. All you need is your data that has the information that you need. It has the coordinate that you want to plot, which is very important. It has the longitude and the latitude, and then some other data, right? You can also use the population size for it, so which is going to be quite big, but you can also use it as the size of the scatter plot, right? Because if I check here, there is also size, right? So I can also use the same thing. Perfect. That is how to plot in Streamlit, right? With Plotly, and then how to plot a map. Now let's move on from here and then add some new features to it. So I also want to automatically change the color, so I can go back here inside my sidebar, and I want to specify some color that I want to use. So I'll call that color that the user can pick. Then Streamlit.sidebar. There is a color picker option, which would call as my color, and I'll give it a value, as you can see. So the value I want to give it is, you can just give it any of these values. So let's give it a value of hash FFD, right? So which is white, similar to white, and then you can see that it's not changing. If I go back here, we have this particular color, but let's pick this, or pick something like this. Copy this one here, and then I'll paste it here. So this is going to be the default value, right? Perfect. And then to use it within our map, I'll just change the magenta to the color. That is all. If I save it, now we have the color. If I change this color to, let's say, green, so the entire stuff will be green, right? Which is quite cool and simple. Okay, we are done with the map. Now let's see how to move on to the advanced, right? In the advanced, we want to be able to select per a country, right? So to do that, I'll just copy the same thing or I can move this data here from here to the beginning of the app so that we load it once. We load the data once and then we use it within our conditions, right? So I'll just copy this because we use it again, and I'll paste it here. That is for the advanced. So in advanced, what we want to do is that we want to let the user be able to select a particular country, right? So I'll get a list of all the countries in the world. So this is going to be the countries, and then this countries is going to be a collection of the country, right, in our country column. So in our case, it's going to be my country, and I'll convert it to list. So dot unique, because they are duplicate, then to list, and I'll use this to list to create a country selected country, which in this selected country we're going to use st.sidebar.select box. Then I'll pass in country as the label, then I'll pass in the countries list. But I can also pass in a default value which I want the user to always see. So I can just put in a particular country, so it can be Ghana, it can be any country, and then I will move from here and I'll change. So now I'll change the selected country. That's what the person have picked. I want to show those data, so I can call it as country df, which in our case it will be the world data frame, and this one will take in the country column, then it's equal to my selected, right? And since we are comparing, we will filter through the entire data set for the world column and then return only this, and this is what we will plot. Countries df, or let's call it as df, so that we don't need to be repeating it over and over again. Perfect. And then I'll pass the df here. So if I save it, it's saying that it got default. The reason is that select doesn't have a default, it has a value. So let's pick the default value, and now we have India, right, or Japan as a default one, right? So we have gotten, if I select here, you can see that we have Japan and cool. So I can just select the country that I want, and then you see the plot change here, right? Very cool. Indonesia. If I move from here to, let's say, Germany or Nigeria or whatever country, so that's here. If I move to, let's say, something like a different country, you can see it, right? India. Perfect. Let's move on from here. We have finished with the advanced. Let's move on to the attendees. So I'll copy the same thing, because the same idea we are using for this simple app, and this time it's not going to be countries. I want to get the cities in the world. So cities, I'll change the column from countries to my cities. Then I'll say this is now city, right? But I don't want to just get one city to use. I don't want to get one city to use. I want to get a collection of cities to use. If I save it and I come back to the attendees, cities is not found because I spelled it wrong. Now if I refresh it, we have key, it's supposed to be city. It's telling me that there's an error because I have to change it, and now pass it here. So this is how it works, right? So now we have all the cities here, right? And then we can select them, but I want to move this one from here to here. So let's take off the sidebar, put it here so that it looks different, so that it comes here. So we have the cities. I want to select multiple cities So how do I do that? So I can just use the multi-select instead of the select box. Then I can now pass in a default value, which in this case, let's call it as any city. So it can be Accra or Kumasi or any stuff. So set the length must correspond. So this is multi-select. There is multi-select, then the cities, then the default, and this one must be in the format of a list because we want to be able to select multiple stuff, right? So I save it now. Everything works. Everything's supposed to work. So let's save it here. So we have here. So how do we get multiple cities? So just go with .isin, then I'll pass in the selected city, and voila. So now I can select any city I want. So I have Delhi. It said it's automatically plotted. So let's go with only Europe so that you see all of them close. So if I go with Paris, there is Paris in Europe, and I'm sure there's Paris somewhere. Yeah. And then I can go back to something different, a different country. So Paris, there is Lisbon, there is whatever country that we have there. I have no idea. Peru, I have no idea if there is something called Peru. So like you can see that it's plotting them, right? And I had no idea there was Paris in France, in US. And you see our data here, all the data there. So Accra, Peru, and then their coordinates, and you can download them out of the box. That's a very simple app that we have built. So the idea is that you first have to load your data, right? And the data should have these options of the city, the latitude and longitude to be able to plot, and then some other data. And then you just load your data, you pick what you want, you load the data, and then you pass it into Plotly scatter map box. So that's how to build a very simple app in Streamlit. So thank you for watching the tutorial, and then see you another time. Thanks for watching. Bye. Ciao. Paka paka.